Oh, hey, how are ya? It's Ask the Author Friday. Ask the Author Friday remains my weekly opportunity to have a nice little fireside chat with you all, the fans. I'm still Kent Brindley. I'm still the local self-published author. I'm still the writer when I get around to it, and it's NaNoWriMo season. Let's get after some questions, shall we? Let's go. So how's NaNoWriMo going this year? I'm still ahead of the curve on that book. I'm a little further behind than I usually am by this time. I'm about 14,245 words into what is supposed to be a 50,000 word novel by the end of all this. I'm maybe 250 words into today's writing, all of which happened this morning. So, yeah, there is that. Morning. Talk to us about your mornings. Wake up in the morning feeling... No. Anyone who finishes that statement the way that you're expected to needs to go back to bed, catch a couple more hours sleep, try to start again later. Tell us about your mornings. All right. It used to be that I only set an alarm for about 5:30 Wednesdays or Fridays, which are my mornings to work 7:30 to noon. Get in a little run, get in some breakfast, get changed, go to work. Spend at least a half hour after my alarm goes off still laying there watching YouTube on my phone. Whoops. It's NaNoWriMo season. Stuff happens during the day. My alarm now goes off at 5:30 every morning. And on the days I don't even have to work, it's perfect. I can write from 6 to 7, I can go on my run, and I can have breakfast at 8. When I have the morning shift, it's more like wake up at 5:30, still make the mistake of watching YouTube until about 6. Quick, get dressed, go on my run, breakfast at 6:30. Maybe get in 10 minutes of writing before I get changed for work. And there's 250 words. Those are my mornings. Let's talk about distractions. Distractions from, look, a bird. I meant distractions from writing, you know that. Distractions from writing. Work life happens, social life happens, YouTube, video gaming, and the back collection of 60s through 80s animation or 60s through 90s sitcoms that I've seen a million times. They happen. I usually get in a little bit of writing in the morning, get in a huge word sprint at night before I turn in, and occasionally get something in during the day. If not for National Novel Writing Month, I haven't been writing at all lately, which is why I'm even doing it this year. Because if you follow National Novel Writing Month, you know about the controversy around it. Let's see here. What have we got? Okay. All right, let's see here. What's my next question here? Next question. He's a 10, but He's a 10, but he just called himself a 10. So this absolutely has to come from an outside source or it does not count. He's a 10, but he's clearly an animation geek. And an action figure geek for that matter. He's a 10, but he doesn't know how to clean his room. He's a 10, but he cannot simply walk around town and listen to music without treating the entire world with windows down or out walking on the sidewalk or anywhere near the windows in their house to what he's listening to. Because it's one thing to be walking around town and going, yeah, this is a good song. It's another altogether to walk around and be going, there might be a little dust on the bottle, but don't let it fool you about what's inside in time with what I'm hearing. He's a 10, but he does not remember email passwords without whispering them out loud as he's typing. He's a 10, but he just mentioned that he still plays video games. This can go on forever. Well, how you doing? I am doing just fine, thank you. And you? No. How are you really doing? Oh, that question. I'm healing. The heart's healing. The mental, emotional, and spiritual health are all healing. The body belongs to a 40-year-old man. If it's hurting, it ain't healing. This has been Ask the Author Friday, and I will see you soon. Superfriends! Alright. Scariot 666. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that right. If not, then my apologies. Asks me, it asks a pretty general question. Just my thoughts on Superfriends. Loving the fact that it's out on Blu-ray now. Loving revisiting every single season and iteration of the Superfriends. Good stuff. Great stuff. Yes. But since that is pretty vague. Super Friends was Hanna-Barbera through the 70s when they weren't creating new seasons of Scooby-Doo, clones of Scooby-Doo, or spin-offs of the Flintstones. And then there's Josie and Josie in Outer Space. Or the Super Friends. Yeah. Versus what? Hanna-Barbera in the 80s when they were making the Smurfs and that was about it. The Super Friends were not the first time that such Justice Leaguers as Aquaman, Superman, Batman, the Green Lantern, the Flash, and Hawkman were on screen. Filmation did it first in the late 60s. Wait a minute. Filmation did it first in the early 60s while Hanna-Barbera was making original superheroes like Space Ghost, Birdman, Mightor, and action series like Johnny Quest. it brings up the Filmation Hanna-Barbera argument all over again, and 3 guesses which side I'm usually on. But we're here to talk about Super Friends. It lasted from roughly 1973 to... What year was the Superpowers team? 84? The year I was born? I think so. So I didn't see Super Friends, obviously, until it was on Cartoon Network in reruns, and Cartoon Network didn't even arrive in my local market until 1999. So the first time I ever saw the Super Friends was the Space Knights of Camelot episode of World's Greatest. Some seasons of Super Friends were better than others. Let's just put it that way right now. I'm lucky I saw a few of the episodes from the first season, alias the Sesame Street years of the Super Friends, and I feel very fortunate that I continued to give this franchise a chance. Best seasons of the Super Friends. Okay, the best seasons were most likely Challenge of the Super Friends and Galactic Guardians. Challenge of the Super Friends introduced the Legion of Doom and put Luthor, Brainiac, Toyman, Grodd, Black Manta, Grundy, Cheetah, Giganta, Sinestro, Scarecrow, Riddler, Captain Cold, Bizarro on screen. Opposite 13 members of the Legion of Doom, opposite 11 members of the Justice League. And there were some great episodes like Super Friends Rest in Peace, or The Trial of the Super Friends, or Secret Origins. Secret Origins of the Super Friends was an excellent episode. Along came Galactic Guardians, where the Superpowers team contended with traditionally Darkseid and his minions, with a very brief cameo from Lex Luthor, and a couple of episodes set aside for Brainiac and one for the Penguin, because reasons. But by the time Superpowers Team Galactic Guardians came along, this was the mid-'80s, so the animation looked a lot smoother, and it was Galactic Guardians that had such great episodes as The Fear, which finally put Batman's origin story on screen for the first time ever, and The Death of Superman, which contended with exactly what the title suggests. And as far as mid-carders go, my favorites of the mid-carders were World's Greatest Super Friends for the Universe of Evil episode and Terror at 20,000 Fathoms, let alone the Space Knights of Camelot episode and Lex Luthor Strikes Back. The sister series to Challenge of the Super Friends, where it was Superman, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Wonder Twins. My favorite episodes from that were, for instance, Battle of the Gods and Batman Dead or Alive. Maybe Space Demons of Exor. Middle of the road was reserved for the all-new Super Friends Hour, which did have some good episodes in The Mind Maidens, The Lion Men, and the Wonder Twins short about prejudice. Then you get into the Lost episodes. There were a couple of good episodes in the Lost episodes, so let's not get too carried away. Which brings us to the Sesame Street years of Super Friends, the very first season, No real villain in sight, save for maybe a couple of episodes. Morally preachy, and it was 1973, so the animation on the first season was extra choppy. And reasons. Reasons that made hour-long episodes of the Super Friends feel more like 3 hours. And that's even with a couple of good episodes in their own right, such as The Androids, and I'm even considering Goodfellas Geek. Favorite members of the Justice League. Favorite members of the Justice League: Batman, Green Lantern. I gotta say Wonder Woman for reasons. And maybe Firestorm. And when I say Batman, I know Batman and Robin are a package deal. So by Batman, I do mean Batman and Robin. Okay, that's off the table. Favorite members of the Legion of Doom: Brainiac, Sinestro, Scarecrow, Toyman. Brainiac, Sinestro, Scarecrow, Toyman. Black Manta. I didn't mention Black Manta yet. If only for his voice alone. Junior Super Friends. Superhero sidekicks. There you go. What are Firestorm and Cyborg but sidekicks? What was Robin except always Batman's sidekick up until the Super Friends came along and they were treated as a package deal, thereby treating Robin as a hero, a senior member of the Justice League. Alright, you know why the teen sidekick question always comes up. It always comes down to the Wonder Twins versus the Junior Super Friends of Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog. Marvin and Wonder Dog in particular are what tanked the first season for me. Wendy brought something resembling intelligence to the table when asked to do so. And it just made the Wonder Twins look like competent heroes because they had their X-Or powers. They at least had a power. And I have to give Gleek his props over Wonder Dog any day of the week. All right. This has been Ask the Author Friday. This time it's for real. This has been Ask the Author Friday. I will see you soon. If you have any questions for future weeks, feel free to hit the comments section. If you enjoy this or any of my other content, feel free to subscribe. Thanks. Bloopers. He's a 10, but yeah, no, he's not. Ruh-roh. No, not a 10. Not at all. Shape of an Exorian male tear. Yeah. I'll see you soon.